Hello and welcome to another Sunday WAY ABC4 Community Forum, where we talk to community leaders and local success stories to discuss important information that affects all of us here in Southern West Virginia. I'm your host, Serena Davanzo. Today we are joined by another distinguished guest, Erin Jones, who is with the AWAY program, and she joins us here this morning. Thank you for joining us today. Can you tell us a bit about what AWAY is?
Absolutely. So AWAY is an organization here in Southern West Virginia where we serve Raleigh, Fayette, Nicholas, and Summers counties, and we help individuals who've been through domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking, and stalking. Okay, and can you tell us a bit about why you're specifically here today and what this month represents? Absolutely. So April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Now, sexual assault in West Virginia specifically is actually one of our highest violent crimes that happens within our state. And I didn't know this until just a couple years ago when I heard a politician say it, and I was like, questionable, but this time he was absolutely right. So, and I know sometimes we think about politicians and go, maybe, but absolutely correct. Sexual assault is one of the biggest violent crimes that we face here in West Virginia. So it's very important that we talk about it and we talk about who all it affects, how it impacts our communities, and how important it is to put a stop to it and help those after the fact when it has happened.
Yes, exactly. And speaking of like West Virginia being one of the highest, can you, do you have any like statistics about a sexual assault and all that?
Yeah, so sexual assault occurs, typically it's about 1 in 4 people. It really is a lot higher and it encompasses a lot of things. So people might think, go straight to the extremes. Sexual assault can mean a lot more than just the extreme of something as severe as rape. So it can also be unwanted touching, it can be unwanted comments and things like that. And those types of things happen as common as in the workplace or in college, at school, things like that. And it can start with, you know, oh, we're just joking, you need to take it less seriously. But the reality is a lot of times those things can escalate into something way more serious. So we have to be aware of what we're saying, what we're doing, and what kind of environment we're creating in our workplaces, in our schools, and within our communities so that we can not perpetrate and really promote that kind of behavior. We want to just hold everyone accountable to the behavior that we're doing. We're not going to accuse you of something just because, but we want to make sure that you understand if you are saying those types of comments, or if you're touching someone who doesn't really want to be touched in places they don't want to be touched, that that's not okay. And that everyone has that right to their own bodily autonomy and their own individual protection.
Yes, exactly. That is such a good message out there for everyone. Doesn't matter if you're man, woman, any sort of anything.
And what people don't realize too, I think a lot of times, you know, you think of these types of crimes and you think it's female only. It's not female only. It is primarily, but that doesn't mean only. That means that men can also be the victims of these crimes, and so can children. So we have to be really aware to protect our youth, to protect women, and to protect men who might be the victims of these crimes. So it's really important that we talk about Sexual Assault Awareness Month and make sure that people are aware of what it is and how they can protect themselves, protect their families, and what to do in case something happens. And in case something does happen, we hope that you would reach out to us. We have advocates in all 4 of those counties I mentioned who are able to walk you through different processes and be with you through any experience that you have afterwards, not just for you, but for your friends and family as well, because it does affect everyone who's in your circle. And we have people that can help you through this situation.
So my next question for you is, we talked a little bit in the beginning, but can you explain more about AWAY's mission when it comes to this subject?
Yeah, our mission is to end the stigma about talking about it and to, as hopefully one day, work ourselves out of a job, right? We don't want to have to be needed anymore. And that would include ending domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking, and stalking within our communities. It would mean that those crimes are no longer committed and that everybody is safe. So that means we are going to fight it on both our local level, where we're talking about being in our communities, being with people, but we're going to fight it at a legal level. We go to the state capitol every single year for these issues and talk to our legislators, and we communicate with people who are in our local, state, and federal governments to try and end it at all of those different levels as well, and to advise people on what these crimes actually do and how our laws can impact the people who have committed these crimes and the people who've been victims of these crimes. So we want to end it at all levels, and we fight that every single day. So it's not just we're in our communities working. Yes, we are, absolutely, every single day. I have incredible advocates who are ready and waiting for a call anytime that you're going to call. We have a 24-hour hotline that you can get a hold of somebody if you're in need. But we also are fighting it on a legal level. We fight it at on medical, everything that we can think of. We are really in there trying to do our best.
That's amazing. So can you tell us a bit about like the different forms of abuse and violence? Because some people, as you said earlier, may think to just the extreme where people get raped, and there's so much more nuance to it. Can you explain a bit of the differences?
Absolutely. So when you're talking sexual assault and domestic violence, there are a lot of layers that go into that. It can be as simple as financial abuse, which sounds, I say simple, but it's one that people don't think of because it is kind of just they have the money, no big deal. And that's actually one area that we see a lot of different people affected, not just females maybe, but males, the elderly, that someone may be taking advantage of them financially. We also, of course, you have the physical, there's verbal, mental. You see people starting to isolate other people, and that can actually impact, you might think that's just domestic violence. That actually impacts sexual assault as well, because a lot of times perpetrators seek out people that they know. And they start that isolation process and they start that threatening process long before anything physical takes place. So there's a lot of layers that lead into not just domestic violence, but also sexual assault, that it's good to just be aware and protect yourself, protect children, protect your families, so that they know what those red flags are. And those are listed up on our website for anyone who's interested in looking at them. It's awayWV.org. And they can take a look at some of those red flags too, and just make sure that, your teenagers, your kids, they're aware of what all those different things are that people can use to take advantage. And it's unfortunate that people out there are willing to take advantage of these things, but it does happen. And so it's better to just be as safe as possible. But of course, we want really people to not do the crime in the first place. It's not ever a victim's fault, ever. Anything that they do, it doesn't matter what you were wearing, what you were doing that night, whether you went out with your friends for a drink, it doesn't matter any of those types of things. It's really about stopping it in its tracks and talking to people early about what those things are, so that maybe it doesn't happen in the first place.
Yes, most definitely. And can you tell me, is there any sort of events you guys are going to be hosting, to help bring awareness?
We do have one coming up, and I will have to get back to you on a complete date because we're still up in the air on that. But we will be hosting a documentary night. We're going to be talking a little bit about what sexual assault is and how it affects our communities, and we'll be showing a documentary so people can see a little bit about how it has affected other communities, so that we can fight to keep it out of ours, hopefully, because we don't want that any type of division or any type of victim blaming in our communities, because it's not anybody's fault when it does happen to you. If it does, that is a horrific crime committed only by the perpetrator, not by the victim. They did not do anything. It doesn't matter. Again, any of the circumstances around the situation doesn't matter. Your age doesn't matter. What you had to drink doesn't matter. What you were wearing doesn't matter. You were out late. It doesn't matter. It's not your fault. It's the person who chose to commit that crime. It is their fault. So those are the kinds of things that we really want everyone to understand and emphasize, because a lot of times there is a victim blaming mentality, which really is not appropriate, because, I mean, you wouldn't blame anyone else to be the victim of a crime, any type of crime. You got mugged. Well, what were you doing? And
exactly.
That's not the case, you were outside, so what? That doesn't mean that you should have been mugged. In the same way, it doesn't mean you should have been assaulted.
Yes, exactly. It's sad to see the amount of victim blaming nowadays. So you have multiple centers around the different counties. Can you tell people where they can reach out to you guys if they are a victim of assault?
Absolutely. So we have a 24-hour hotline. That number is 304-255-2559. You will get an answer 24/7. So it doesn't matter which of those 4 counties you're in, or if you're outside our service area and you're seeing this, you can still call that and we'll give you the right phone number to reach someone who's going to be able to help you so that you have the resources that you need. You can also learn more on our website at awaywv.org, and you can reach us there as well. Now, when I say that, we have people in all 4 of those counties. We have people in all 4 of those counties who, we do hospital visits. If a crime does occur late at night, early in the morning, you can call that 24-hour hotline and we're going to get an advocate out to you. They'll be with you through a whole medical process so you're not alone, because that is a really hard thing to go through alone. If you have to go through any type of examination, it's very intimidating, it's very scary. Maybe you don't know what's actually going to occur during one of those examinations, and they are going to be able to walk you through the process and be with you through that process so that you're not alone. They're also going to be able to walk you through what your legal options are and help you with any choices that you make. So we don't make any choices for anybody. You get to make those decisions yourself. And we are going to be with you through that whole decision process. Maybe you don't feel like it's the right time to actually go through with a police report. That's okay. We're going to be with you through that process. We also now have a support specialist who's going to be able to walk with you through that whole emotional processing experience, because it's a lot of emotions that you go through, right? You're probably going to hit anger. You're probably going to be self-blaming, which you really shouldn't, but that's okay because it does happen. It's a natural part of the process, and they're going to be able to walk with you through all of that as well. And we're just going to be able to lay out what all of your options are so that you can make the best decision for you, so that you're not going to feel pressured or anything, but we want you to not have to go through it alone. And that's what our advocates do. And we do it in all 4 counties: Raleigh, Fayette, Nicholas, and Summers County.
Well, that's amazing. I'm at a loss for words. I'm sorry, everybody. But with that, stay with us after the break. If you look down below, you'll see the website and phone number that you can reach out to the OA services where they can help you. And with that, stay with us after the break. Hello and welcome back to our WAY ABC4 Community Forum, where we have here Erin Jones, who is with Away. And so just a bit of a refresher after the break, can you explain to the audience about what Away is?
Absolutely. So Away is a nonprofit organization where we help individuals who have been through domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking, and stalking here in Southern West Virginia. So our 4 counties that we serve are Raleigh, Fayette, Nicholas, and Summers counties, and we help people through all kinds of different aspects of the process of going through not just the emotional side, but actually what happens after these crimes might be committed, and helping educate people so hopefully they're not committed in the very first place.
Well, with that, you mentioned earlier that about 1 in 4 people get assaulted in one way, shape, or form. Can you tell us more about statistics about this type of abuse?
Absolutely. So it's really scary when you talk about sexual assault and what some of those statistics are. And a lot of questions come up about, well, why didn't you report, right? So a lot of people kind of blame the victim on that as well. Not just victim blaming of it happened to you in the first place, but well, why didn't you go to the police? And there's a lot of reasons why someone may not feel comfortable reporting to law enforcement about an assault. So that could include things just, not ready for it. Maybe they're too young, so they need a parent to believe them who's going to be able to report on their behalf, things like that. But there's also a little bit of a barrier when it comes to the actual crime statistics of when people actually are convicted of this crime. So over 90% of sexual assaults, and this is across the whole country, are not reported. That's a huge amount of people who don't even report the crimes. So we probably don't even have true statistics when it comes to the 1 in 4. It's almost more of a best guess considering how often people actually are able to report and are comfortable reporting. And then on top of that, so we have less than 10% that are actually reported, and about 6% of those end in a conviction. So it's really hard to push somebody to say, hey, go report this situation when we're afraid that the law may not actually meet them where they are, and they have to relive an entire experience without the promise of actual justice for what has happened to them. And that's something that we fight every single day, not just on the local level, but all the way on the state and federal level as well, to make sure that those crimes are actually completely put through the legal system correctly, and that these victims have the chance to get justice for the crimes that were committed against them. So it's something that we hope that people will fight with us, because it's not fair that the victim of a crime, any crime, but especially sexual assault, because it's so personal, that the perpetrators of these crimes get away with it or don't see justice when we have that opportunity, right? You see it a lot where one person comes forward and says, oh my goodness, this happened to me. And a lot of times those people, the perpetrators, have a lot more victims in their back pocket that nobody knew about because they were too afraid to talk. And even if you don't want to report to law enforcement, know that we're here. We're not going to pressure you to do it, but we're going to be here to be with you through the whole process. If you decide to go legal, we'll be with you through that. If it's just, I need to get through the emotional turmoil of what has happened and process it properly, we're here for that as well. So please know that you don't have to go through that process by yourself, because Away and our advocates, who are absolutely incredible, are here to walk with you through that process from beginning to end, or whenever you decide you want to involve us, and whenever you decide that you feel comfortable that you don't need us anymore. But we always appreciate a follow-up to let us know that you're doing okay, and we have a lot of people who do that, which is awesome. We have people that contact us years after they've used our services just to let us know that they're still doing a fantastic, and that they're growing and they have their confidence back.
It's so good to see all your organization and all the different ones throughout the country just being able to help these people who have just been through one of the worst things imaginable. And speaking of the process, can you delve a bit more into the process, whether it's the process through the emotional trauma or the legal process? Can you give us a bit more information about what you guys provide for them?
Absolutely. So it really depends on the person, because we really individualize the process for you. Not everyone's story is the same. So we're going to make sure that we create a plan, I guess is the word, a plan that is specific to your needs. So sometimes the process starts with the medical. We may get a call from a hospital saying, hey, we have this situation. Can you come out and be with the person? So we'll start there, and we will be with them through any type of medical exams. If they have to go to the doctor for any type of follow-ups and they want somebody to go with them, we're with you through that. If there is a legal battle, we're going to be with you through that whole process, whether it is helping figure out a lawyer, helping figure out working with the prosecuting attorney's office, whether it's working with law enforcement. We have our connections and our organizations that we're able to work with. with if the process involves a child. Our child advocacy centers that we work very closely with in every one of our counties, we're going to bring them into the process as well, because they have some skill sets that we do not have when it comes to children specifically, that we would be able to use them as a partner as well. So we have a lot of community partners that we rely on, and hopefully rely on us, but that we are able to work with, that are able to help keep the process as seamless and as careful and respectful of the victim as possible. But your process is also going to probably include things like safety planning. So the safety planning is just ways that you can be safe. And if something does arise, we have a plan of how to get you out of a situation that is no longer safe. Whether it may be contacting law enforcement, it may be relocation to a new place, maybe living with family. We also have a shelter that we manage, and people are always welcome to come there if they have experienced any of our 4 areas that we work with, which is domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking, and stalking. And they can come live at the shelter for safety as well while we figure out what the best plan is that you want to do, what the process is that you want. And it's very much led by our clients. So it really depends on what is best for them and what they feel is best for them. And we're going to listen to you no matter what, because we believe you.
Well, that's definitely good to know. I bet all the people who are watching right now probably got a lot more like knowledge, I guess you could say, about like, oh, this is what they can do to help me, instead of just being like, oh yeah, we hear you. Like,
yeah, what is it that you do again?
Yeah, so that's good information for people who may not know what you guys be able to provide for them.
Absolutely, and it is hard to explain because you hear the word advocate a lot thrown around these days, and it's, I advocate for this and I advocate for that, which is fantastic, and we do advocate for what we do. We advocate, to our legislators, we advocate to law enforcement and to our prosecuting attorney, but we really, what it comes down to is we advocate for our clients. So whether that is, hey, I'm not comfortable with this particular medical situation. All right, well, we got your back. We're going to you don't have to say that necessarily by yourself, right? Because it's hard to sometimes stand up to what you perceive as an authority figure alone. But you have someone with you, all of a sudden there is an empowerment process that really happens. And that is what we do. We empower our clients again. We get them back to being their individual selves and empower them to be themselves again. Because any of these crimes, you really lose sense of self, right? You really lose, who am I? What did I do? How could this happen to me? Not just with sexual assault, domestic violence, stalking, human trafficking. I was just being me, and this horrible thing happened to me. It's not about you. You didn't do anything. You didn't provoke this, you didn't start this, you are not responsible for this person's behavior. So that is really what we do, is we empower people to be themselves again and hopefully help them get their confidence back into being their individual self again.
That's great. And so when it comes to these type of crimes, a big thing that comes up that people question, like the gray area around this, is consent. Would you be able to explain it, or at least in your own words, about consent?
Absolutely. So consent, obviously very important. And it's important for a lot of different things. It's not just in a sexual situation that consent is important, right? I ask mom and dad before I use their car. So why would I not ask when I am maybe touching somebody in a place that typically is not shown to the public? So there's a lot of ways to receive consent too. It can be nonverbal stuff, but it can also be verbal. Hey, are you comfortable going to this next step? You can ask those types of questions. Now, if somebody's pulling away from you, they're not comfortable. But consent also means, can they actually give consent? So those types of things are they incapacitated? Do they have the mental fortitude to actually give consent? So people who may not have full mental recognition of what's going on around them cannot legally give consent. Age, obviously, you talk about people being, whether they're a minor or not, that plays a huge role of whether they are mentally capable of giving consent. Are they old enough to really understand the situation? So all of these things play a part in consent. Now, if you have a relationship with a person your age, fully mentally capable, fully physically capable, it's really just those cues that we all know, I think, pretty well, where you reach over and they reach back. Okay, that's a go, right? If you're reaching for their hair and they're like, oh no, thank you, that's a no-go. We're gonna, that's a big stop sign. And they may actually say, no, I'm uncomfortable. That's a stop sign, right? So I know that people talk about consent like it's this big, huge thing. We don't necessarily say that you have to have consent for every single. Can I touch your hand? Can I touch your hair? Can I touch your face? Can I touch your shoulder? You don't have to ask each time, but most people are adept enough to understand those nonverbal cues of, oh, no, I'm pulling my shoulder back. I'm not comfortable with you touching my shoulder. Or at least I'm not comfortable yet. So sometimes it's, oh, I'm sorry, we need to slow down here. Or sometimes it's, I'm not interested. And actually receiving that information and saying, okay, that's fine. I'm not gonna try that again for at least a while until we feel more comfortable with each other. So understanding that it doesn't always have to be a verbal cue, but it is important to pick up on those cues that your partner or your potential partner is actually giving out to you. And as long as you are listening to them, and you can always follow up with a question. Hey, are you uncomfortable with me touching your shoulder right now? Yes, I am. Okay, I am so sorry I made you uncomfortable. Let's go back to just sitting and talking.
Yeah, definitely.
It's being able to receive that no and say, okay, that's all right. Let's move on to a different option. Let's just talk. Or you know what? I think you might need a little space tonight. I'm going to go ahead and head home. Let's give you a little space.
Exactly. And consent can be just as easy as that, and it can help prevent so many of these crimes that people are seeing and witnessing for themselves, and that this advocacy group is working with the victims of. But with that is the end of our community forum. If you look at the links and email, phone number down below, you can get in contact with them if you need the services. Thank you all so much for joining us for this week's community forum, and have a great day.